Greetings, welcome to day 49 of projectDIG. Thank you for joining. projectDIG is a 2D multiplayer automation survival sandbox game that I'm developing here entirely on Twitch and uploading all the VODs to YouTube. Speaking of multiplayer, that's what we're working on, that's what we started the other day, and we actually implemented some stuff yesterday, so we're going to be continuing to work on that and hopefully make some good progress. Here we are. So I can kind of go over what we have so far. It's pretty simple. Pretty much what we have here is this network namespace, and then inside of that we have a server and a client namespaces. Each one of those have their own little interface that we are working through, so we can set up the server and shut it down, send messages through the server, broadcast, receive, and hook up callbacks to handle different message types. And then the client kind of supports something very similar where we can connect to a server or peer-to-peer, disconnect, send messages to the server, receive messages, and then handle messages through callbacks. So we have that set up and actually working. We have this local socket, it's called create socket pair, that kind of makes this server and client connection so we can like send messages from the server to the client and from the client to the server, and it kind of doesn't really care that like it's not actually going through our local port or anything like that. You can set that up through the network. It's called network loopback, so it's not like sending it to ourselves. We could set that to true, and we might actually end up doing that. So we have that all set up and working. What we're trying to get working now is this an actual connection where we have two different clients trying to communicate just over the local host, and I'm having some challenges with that. So yeah, we'll be trying to figure out exactly what's going on here, how to fix that. So the network library we decided on using is this it's called Steam networking sockets, I believe. Game networking sockets. And it's through Valve. It's part of the Steamworks SDK, but they did make an open source version of it. Here, game networking sockets that you could use, so you don't have to you don't have to be using Steam to be able to actually use this library. You can have it on PS4 or Good Old Games or whatever, GOG. So I am currently trying to figure out how to set up this connection and get it working. It doesn't seem... Oh, you know what? I think I just realized part of the problem. Yeah, wow, okay. I completely forgot. Like, it seems like it's not posting any of the callbacks. It's because I don't run the Steam API run callbacks. Okay, maybe this is actually the problem. Run callbacks. Do we want it to be after or before? I don't know. Let's say after. Run callbacks. We do it after here. Okay, so maybe this is it. So I have it so that the debug version of the game is the server. So this is the server and this is the client. That's right. So let's build the client really quick. So how we have it set up is that for testing purposes, we have a, where's that at? Here we are. This write stream where we write this request entity creation, and then it writes out in a prefab ID and a position. And then up here on the client, not really a request anymore. The client will create that entity. So it's just a very simple way to have the server tell the client, hey, create this entity at this location. We don't have any sort of syncing or any logic beyond that. It's really, really simple. Oh, whoops. Setup, that's all good. So I wanted to, okay, I do have that there. Now let's go to our release and see if it's not breaking. It should be trying to set up this connection. It should be hitting this here. I don't know if I have this set up properly. Kind of weird. This is not just kind of weird, it's very weird. I think I'm going to change this. Maybe make it so it's not static. I think making it be static is actually probably messing it up. Because it might be that the other Steam stuff isn't initialized or set up, so like during static initialization, it's probably being screwed. Yeah. Back handler. How's it going, Stevoid? What's up? So what could I do about this? Here we go. Here's a quick, cheap way to do things. We'll set this up, make it a null pointer. And then whenever we set up, we're going to actually initialize this. So right now, we're not destroying it at all. So that's actually kind of a problem. I guess we could just go into shutdown and say, let's delete that. And we need to do the same in the client side. So I'm not saying I want to keep this. This is just a very quick way for me to test this out. With this Steam callbacks. So how it's supposed to be working is that we have this private function here, or this private Steam callback. It kind of doesn't really matter if it's private or not, I think. Oh, wait, what? Do I need to? No, wait, okay, I think that's fine. Never mind. I'm like, for a moment, I thought I had completely forgotten something. But I think we're okay. Okay, so this is the server. This is the client. It should, oh wait, it broke. Aha! Result was okay. Hey yo! Nice. This is looking ah. Promising? Ah. So close. Are we receiving any messages here? We are. Oh wait. Oh, that might be, oh, this is on the server side. Whoops, my bad. Are we broadcasting? Oh, we might not be broadcasting. Are we broadcasting? We're sending it? Oh, that's my problem. Yeah. Right now, we're only sending it to ourselves. Broadcast. Whoops. No wonder why it's not working. Yeah, so we'll just broadcast for each connection and connections. I wonder if we should also send it to ourselves. Like, do this. I think so. Okay. I think this will work now. We don't need to rebuild this server, client release. Okay, move that over there. Connect this. Oh, wait. Hey, nice! Seeds victory! Awesome! That is very cool. Nice. So now we have it so it's actually sending data from the server to the client, and that's actually working properly, and it's trying to it's actually, yeah, right now it's using my local host, but it should work otherwise, yeah. So that's very awesome. And Nixify dev, me trying to code on my project brain. Oh look, a stream. Yeah, that's me. That's one of the reasons why I stream development, is because I'm like, oh hey, I wonder what's on Imager. I know it's only been like 2 minutes since I looked, but maybe something's different. That's awesome though. This is good. This is very good. So cool. So we have the basics working. I think what we want to do now, bane of my existence, yeah. There are websites or like plugins that help you block various websites. So that way you can kind of be free of them. I feel like, you know, there's a few different options, like limit the amount of time you can be on it or just completely block it. Are you using any libraries for your networking? Yes. We are using this game networking sockets library that you can find here. You go to dev. Oh, dig. Sorry, dig. We screen share. Nice. Screen share. I never did that with anyone that I've worked with in the past. That's cool. That's cool. You wrote your own networking solution? Dang, yeah, I did that back when I was working on my previous game, Korea. This was like 6 years ago or something. And after like maybe a week and a half in, I had some super basic thing working. You know, I was trying to build reliability on top of UDP. And I was just like, you know what, screw that. Because, well, I got it working, and then I found that there was a bunch of bugs in it. And it's like, I don't want to spend forever trying to fix these issues. At the time, like, you know, this was 6 years ago, I was still pretty new to doing indie game dev stuff, and I never done Netcode before, and yeah. Or looking at the other screen and try clicking on it. Nice. That's funny. Libraries. Okay, cool. So, yeah, that's awesome. I mentioned that I was going to use RackNet, and then some people told me don't use RackNet, you should use eNet, or this game networking sockets, or there's also this new one called Yojimbo, or which is developed by Gafferon Games. Glenn Feldler, I think is his name. Everyone knows him as Gafferon Games. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I kind of considered using that, but I ended up just going with the Steam solution. But it's not that big of a deal because if you look at this, it's very, very contained. Like everything that is Steam or game networking sockets related is within the network.h and the network.cpp files. Everything else that we'll write for the netcode is not going to be used here. I also work on a WoW emulator. That's where I started writing on my own solution and eventually brought it over to my Unity game. Nice, cool. Actually, funny enough, I was working on a Pharmacy 11 emulator not all too long ago, earlier this year and last year. I haven't worked on it recently, but there's like a big team working on it, so it's not abandoned or anything. But that's cool. So what does the WoW emulator, the private server community think of WoW Classic? Do you guys feel like, are you excited about it, or are you like sad that they're like taking away some of your players, or mixed bag of reactions? Yeah, I can see that. Like, I know I personally would be very excited if Square Enix decided to release a Final Fantasy 11 classic, but I don't think they are going to. WoW is always way more popular than Final Fantasy 11. Personally, I think it's great. Private servers will prevail, especially on the new client for sure. Oh, so the new client is supporting or backward supporting stuff. That's actually really cool. I like that. I don't know exactly what they're doing, but I like the idea. Like, one thing that kind of sucks about the Final Fantasy 11 private servers, a lot of these private servers are trying to kind of reverse the changes that have been made over time. And while it's possible to change stuff on the server side, it's kind of hard or impossible to change stuff on the client side. And so unless you have the old clients laying around, it means that you are stuck with some like newer changes. So maybe like NPC dialogue has changed, or the stats on items have changed, or whatever. It's stuff that is data that's on the client. And in the client dat files, you can't really change those easily. I mean, you can, but you have to like get a dat modifier, and yeah. Anyways, let's get back to working on this. You do the reversing of the WoW client? Nice. Cool. Yeah, but stuff is kind of fun to do. It's tricky. It's definitely tricky. So this actually works. I wonder, now that I'm actually calling this, let's try making it so it's not a pointer and just see if that works. Like, I don't know if it's going to work with it being statically initialized with this theme callback stuff. I have a feeling it's not, but I figured we would try it out. Let's do this. Yeah, BOSD just got me good. Nice. I imagine that happens fairly often if you're trying to dig deep into the client code. BSOD, yeah, blue screen of death, yes. BSOD. I knew what you meant. Okay, let's launch the release version here. Yeah, so that doesn't work. We have to have it. That's what I was kind of thinking, and I'm not entirely sure about this now. What about this? Maybe this will work. So let's go ahead and nah, I take that back. Man, I really don't like this. I feel like this is a little awkward. Thinking about some other possible solutions that we could do for this. Right now, what I'm thinking is that we can add in a initialize that is always called, and so this needs to be called, and that will do our server callback, callback handler, initialize that, and the client one as well, and then oh yeah, we need to actually specify which ones. And then we need a shutdown, which will destroy those and delete them. And then also let's before we do that, let's call server disconnect shutdown, and the client disconnect. And that should, if disconnect. I think what we could do here is just say if the connection is valid. Then we'll do that. And up here, and logging, and shut down. I think we want to do the same. Oh, that's a good point. Is I'm not calling shutdown on the local client stuff too. I need to do that. That's right. So we need to do, if this is, oh, I should also be setting that, huh? That's a good point. Thank you for reminding me. Okay, so that's good. Actually, let's move this up because we also want to say if the connection is set. Then we need to close it as well. Reason 0 null pointer false. And we should at this point set the connection equal to this. So that will shut it down properly. Oops, skipped it. Disconnect. Here we go. No, wrong thing. Cool. All right, so now the shutdown will work properly, and that will actually handle if, like, any scenario, if we are the server or the client or we're doing pass-through, whatever, it will properly tear everything down. So then we can go to the game. Hey Bart, what's up? How is your new game engine coming along? So here we need network, initialize. Oops. Oh, I didn't expose it, huh? First I thought I was misspelling. Void initialize, void shutdown. Oops. Cool. Working on it right now. Nice. It's fun to write some core code, but also getting impatient to get to the game. Yeah. I hear ya. I'm having a lot of fun with kind of exploring all of these different like core systems that need to support the game. I'm enjoying it for sure. But I'm also not going very deep with them. I typically like implement the most basic solution and then it's like, well, I don't know exactly what we need to do with it yet, so let's move on to something else. Which is maybe a little cheating because in the future I'm going to have to like, you know, really get my hands dirty with some stuff like the Fmod system is super basic, or spine, like I actually the spine stuff might be okay. I don't know. I think we're going to have to go back through a lot of stuff. So I think we're done. Oh wait, no, I take that back. Never mind. Where was that example? I was going to look at some of this other stuff. So we have this connection working here. This callback handler that handles when the connection status changes. We're not really doing much with that at the moment. So we have one for the server and one for the client. We accept the connection, but that's it. So yeah, I was wanting to look at what more do we need to do in here. Locate the client. Yeah, like what happened if they disconnect? We need to remove them from the list of connected clients. That's something we need to do. Closed by peer or problem detected. Yeah. And if the old state was connected, that means we need to remove them from our list. Yeah, here they erase it. Exactly. Clean up the connection. This is important. The connection is closed in the network sense, but it has not been destroyed. I see. So that's also something we need to do. Closed by peer or problem detected. Let's see. So maybe we'll do a switch statement like what they have here. Yeah. That's what I'm thinking. So we need to do something more along the lines of this stuff. Okay, so let's do this. Switch. This is inspired by setup. Let me check that out. Message received. Nice, cool. Seems nice and simple. This is for your C# game engine, I take it? Or I guess it's not really a game engine. You mentioned you are using Unity. Okay, so that's our connecting. Let's look at what the other cases are. So we have none here, which I guess is a break. I'm gonna actually take this note and leave it in here because that's actually a really nice note. Just to understand what that's doing. Connected. Default. Finding route. Some connection types use a back channel or trusted third party for earliest communication. I see. Connected. Okay, and then they have this closed by peer and problem detected locally. And we'll have that fall through. And this is where we need to actually handle the case that, yeah, the connection has closed. And so one thing we need to do is say networking close connection. I don't know if we like actually want to support that or do anything with that. Here they just do that. Clean up the connection. Yeah, and so the other thing that we need to do in here really is remove them from the list of connections. What we'll just do is say for auto iter s connections. Is this just a list of connections? Right now it is. Yeah, I think I'll do it this way. Again, is not equal to the end of the connections. Increment the iterator, and all we just need to do is say, hey, if this iterator, we need to dereference it. here, is the connection, info connection. Then we want to erase this from the list of connections and break. We found it. We don't need to do anything more than that. So this will erase it. Hey, Ultima Nerd, what's up? Welcome. That handles all of those scenarios correctly, I believe now. I think the client side is much simpler. We can take a look at that. Like, what does it need to actually handle? Here's the close. I guess if we get disconnected, yeah, again, we need to properly remove it. Oh, that's a good point, is that we should set the connection to null. Or the invalid. That's actually a really good point. Because it might be that... I wonder if this is called... I don't think it is. I guess we should try that. Test this out. Is this called when we are doing the setup socket pair, I think is what it's called. Just working on my game and being sick with the flu. Dang, that sucks, man. That sucks. Oh. Boo. Okay, first up, let's move this up here. Result. We have to put this in scope. Yeah. I hate being sick. It's the worst. At least you're feeling well enough to work, I guess. Silver lining, right? Okay, so yeah, I want to see if this is called when we are doing the setup local, which does, yes, this create socket pair. So hot, I would trade having the flu or for cold weather. Yeah, so it's not calling it. So that's good, I guess. That means that we don't have to handle when it's disconnected. Right? Yeah, this isn't being called. Where's the template metaprogramming? Oh, in other places? It's right over here. Well, I guess it would be here. And here. Yeah. It's in places. Slowing down the compilation. Okay, so yeah, the reason I was checking to see if it was doing that is because if it was, then that means that whenever we are being closed here, we need to properly handle it if that is the case in here. Like, if it is our pass-through connection, the socket pair connection, then we would need to check to see if that's the case and disconnect that. Or set it equal to null, but that doesn't seem to be the case. All right, let's change this. I think what I'll do, just to make this easier on myself, copy this, drop this over here. and then delete most of it. Oh, I forgot about that. That's actually something we probably need to do, huh? Is checking to see what the previous state was. Because if it wasn't already connected, then we don't want to disconnect it. Right? Connecting, connected, default. So yeah, we don't need to do anything with the connecting, break. Connected, I guess, like, I don't know if we really need to do anything with that. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna have that fall through right now. Have all of them fall through. I think that's okay. Oh yeah, that's right. You have to, if you wanted to support falling through, you have to do like fall through or something like that. Which I feel like kind of defeats the entire purpose if you are just falling through to break. I guess it's useful if you actually wanted to do that logic. So yeah, in here, I think what we need to do is say that we're only doing this if the info old state is equal to connected, right? Maybe. I don't know. I saw like if it was connecting, it would also try to do something. So this is, by the way, this is the example code for this library. So I'm just kind of looking at how they handled things. It looks like maybe it doesn't matter. They kind of, oh wait, no, they do here. Okay, so all of this, I see. Got it. So we always close the connection. Okay, that makes sense. We always close the connection. But, wait, that's the wrong thing. But, if, oh no, that's right, that's right. But we only want to erase this connection from the list of connections that we have if we were successfully connected. And that's only, so we accept the connection. If that is successful, then we will push it onto here, right? This kind of doesn't really matter that much because like worst case scenario, we don't find it. Oh well, whatever. Like it's 3 items that it iterates over. So it's not a big deal. I don't even know if it's worth checking there. Okay, let's jump down to here. So this is where we are closing on the client side. So what they do is they pretty much just close the connection. And they set the connection equal to this K, there it is. Net connection invalid. Seems good. There's probably something I want to do to propagate that, to let the player or the game know that you've been disconnected. Because it's like, let's say you're playing with someone and you get disconnected, it should kick you back out to like the main menu or something, right? Yeah, honestly, I think that's where I would prefer to have like some callback set up. It could even be in as a message type. We could have it like handle disconnect. Just like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe like connection established. Maybe I'll just say connected, disconnected, something along those lines. And so then in here we could just do a, so this is, okay, maybe not. How do I want to handle that? Because that's going to expect us to pass in some stuff that doesn't make any sense. No, I'm not doing that. I changed my mind. I think what I'd rather do, I'm not sure. I kind of don't really like this setup, to be honest. You should have a callback on socket established and socket closed. That's what these are, basically. These callbacks here. But what I was thinking is that then how does that get to the gameplay systems? Like, how does it know that? How does the game know that it should be kicking the player out to the main menu or something along those lines? I'm not sure of that yet. So this is being called when we, so it gets set up here and it gets called through this. We personally on our server use a concurrent queue to pass messages from the network layer to the ECS layer. Sure. Yeah, I mean, so this is kind of already doing, for the most part, what you're saying. I'll pull these over. So this is code from Nixify. Communication opcode, authentication proof, handle continue auth session, default message pack. Okay, that's the default message type. Got it. Handle packet read. Yeah. That's the opcode. message and forward packet, packet buffer. Yeah, this is pretty much what I do as well. World node handler, pass message. This is very similar to what I'm doing, where in here, we have this receive function, and so we have these these callbacks set up, and then we get the message type, and then we pass it to the callback, if we can find one. So we're not putting into a queue. Well, like, it's kind of in a queue already through the this library. So the library's running, it's receiving messages, then we call receive message on connection. We look to see what messages have been received on that connection. We can say how many messages we want to get a maximum, and then it tells us how many we actually got. And then we are, we get that message, we put the data into, this is just copying the pointer. We say, hey, this is where we are at within this message, and this is the total size. And so it's actually, we're not even doing a copy here, so that's pretty nice. That's just like referring to that piece of data. And then we can, we pull out the message type, and yeah. So it's kind of already in a queue. It really is. However, using the callback won't get it on the thread which the gameplay systems are running. Yeah, so kind of. So how, and that kind of goes, much lower. Like, how is all of this, how are the game systems working and running on threads, and how it's like, I'm not sure exactly how we want to handle this yet. It might be that it's kind of blocking whenever we receive it, but how the threads are going to work, you should definitely have a network thread. Well, it's running a network thread. I mean, the library itself has a network thread, right? So that's running, it's doing its thing. So whenever we call this is non-blocking from my understanding, and we can get the messages. So it's not like we have a socket that we're actually being blocked on while we're receiving data or anything like that. Our systems are set up very differently from how games typically do systems. And how it's going to work is that so this is being ran on the main thread, the network receive. And I mean, I haven't gotten into doing this yet, so it's all theoretical right now, because we don't really have many game systems, like any game systems really. But how it's going to work is that we have the scheduler, and our scheduler has all these different systems that will be placed into it and scheduled. And it's going to, at some point in the future, be able to schedule or run. It will spawn it'll have like a thread pool, and it will pretty much just like spawn and block which systems are running and try to parallelize them as well as it can based off of what which components it's being able to read and write. All of the game data is either stored in components, which are for entities, or world components, which are like these global. Well, they're not really global. They're these components that are associated to the world. And that's how the systems can communicate and share data. The systems themselves are just functions that operate on the world. And when we set up our system with the scheduler, we schedule it and we tell the scheduler which components we are reading or writing, and that will enable the scheduler to know which components it needs to block on. So like we can have multiple systems reading a single component, but we can only have one system writing to a component at a time. So if we have, like here, we have this animation system that's writing to the animation component as well as the render component, and so nothing else can do anything on those while this is running. But there might be something else, like there might be multiple things reading our render component, or a transform component. Like we'll have lots of things reading our transform component but not actually writing to it, so those could all just freely read that data and not be blocked. So we'll have multiple readers there. So that's how we're going to handle it. So the idea is that means that all of our data is going to be, that's all pretty basic game development. I don't know about that. You can develop these systems in very different ways. Yes, this is fairly basic for ECS, or this is one of the solutions you can come up with for ECS. This is, I would say, a more pure ECS where the entity is only an ID, the component is pure data, and the system is pure logic, and there's no state on it. But you can build games in very different ways from this, with like the monolithic inheritance system where like everything derives from an entity, or you can have a component-based system, or whatever. But with this, I think that this makes it so that our scheduler is going to be spawning these threads, or have all these threads that it's going to be running the systems on, and that means that we can have when we receive all of our network packets and run everything, that's on the main thread. And it's like, maybe we could probably, if we wanted to, spawn that into multiple things and maybe have it handled, but it might be a little tricky because I haven't figured out exactly how we're going to have that all set up with handling the packets. But right now, yeah, what I'm thinking is that this is going to run on the main thread, and then and it will tell all the systems to handle this data properly. But then the systems themselves will be running on, or the logic can be spawned off onto multiple threads, and so it doesn't need, like, I guess my whole point is that it doesn't need to be on the system threads, because the system threads are they're kind of the systems that are running on the threads are just going to be dynamic. We don't know where they are at or anything like that. It's just like, oh yeah, the animation system might run on this thread sometimes, or might run on this other thread, and they'll be parallelized with these other systems based off of the read and write for the components. And so I think it's just all going to work. But We have a system dedicated to running all the packet data, and once the system is done, every other system that can be parallelized is ran in correct orders. Yeah, that's basically what I'm going to be doing here. This is running on the main thread right now, but that's fine. Maybe in the future we will want to do something else where it's not on the main thread. I'm not sure about that. I don't really know how important that is. Like, I think it'll be fine. I think I'd prefer to keep things simpler until we actually prove that we need them to be more complex. This is a 2D game. It's not an MMO. At most you'll have like 3 people connected. There are not going to be that many packets being sent to and from the client and server. Yeah. Yeah, it's something that, like, I could see it. Yeah, we could see if it's a problem in the future. Like, oh, hey, we're actually spending a little bit more time running this on the. If we're the server, this is a little bit more impactful. You know, maybe that is the case. But yeah, I think that it's a pre-optimization to spawn that off into another thread or whatever and try to join. If we don't need to. Yeah. We'll see. There's so much stuff that, like, I'm still piecing together all the game systems and well, just like the game engine itself, that, and I haven't really even gone into the game system, so I'm like, I don't know exactly what I'm doing yet because we're still figuring things out, just like fitting stuff together. Yeah, and right now what we're doing is we do have it so when we are receiving, we're setting a maximum number of messages that can be received. And so that kind of helps. Like, let's say we get flooded with like 200 packets or whatever for some reason. We're just like, well, we can only do like 30 at this frame. That will mean that if we continue to get flooded, then we'll start having this backlog of messages that we have to go through. But I don't think that's ever going to be a problem. And we can play around with this, you know, and see. But I don't think it'll be a problem. This is running every single frame. I don't think we'll ever be sending that many messages. MCMPQ. I don't know if I've ever heard of that. CMPQ. Oh, multi-consumer, multi-producer. Okay, yeah. Never mind. Yeah. I just never heard of that acronym. Okay, so I think we're good here for now. Limit certain message types per frame. Yeah, can see that. Like, typically the things that would be like the vast majority of packets that are going to be sent are like prediction state information, like, hey, here's the current velocity of these entities and here's all of the current positions and I don't know, whatever else we would need, the animation or something, I don't know, the direction it's facing, and that's going to be spammed, pretty often, being sent to the clients. But yeah, it's going to be unreliable ordered, and so if we ever did get multiple, we can just throw away the older ones. So I think it's going to be fine. Like we would only the system itself is going to be throwing away that stuff for us. Okay, so let's grab this. I think we want this. Yep, that looks good. Looks good. Sweet. Okay, so what did we do here? We got basics, netcode using game networking sockets. Nice. I think a big optimization, if you have phones, would be to move the callbacks out of the processed later, to be processed later. That way you could run parallel for loops on the packets that every single connected player. From every single, yeah, gotcha. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I mean, I appreciate other people's insights onto this stuff because honestly, like, I'm familiar with this stuff now. I would say I'm comfortable, but I'm not like super knowledgeable. Like I read a bunch of mostly it was like back 6 years ago. I read like all of the gaff around game stuff and just like various articles that I could find about doing netcode. And then I implemented it for my previous game, Korea, and then I haven't really done much more since then, and I haven't worked with people on a multiplayer solution before. Yeah, this is the game I worked on before, Korea. In case you're interested. Let's see. And ended up having like I used RackNet for Korea, ended up having, some multiplayer problems, but not too many. It had a lot early on, but I fixed them over time. Yeah. So let's set up the first real message, which is authentication message. Authentication. I'm spelling that wrong. Authentication. Authent. Yeah, that's a horrible attempt. So what we want to do with that is send a request to the client telling them, hey, you need to authenticate before you can actually be considered fully connected. And at that point, then whenever they send that, we will actually authenticate the player. Yeah. So let's see here. I guess we'll start with the server. Right, we'll send it to the server. Ugh. Sorry, we'll send it from the server. Here. If the password is not empty, add them to the connection. And then we'll say, otherwise, we need to send a message to the client at this point. Did your brain just be SOD? Not quite. Actually, I got distracted with someone talking to me on the side. That happens often. Speaking of which, one moment. Okay. Yeah, so what we'll do here is we'll just send an authentication request. What do we need to do? We want to call send to that connection, to this new connection that we accepted. This needs to be reliable. So actually, I kind of want to double check this no niggle thing. So if a niggle is where it like will try to hold and pack stuff up, right? Sends a message unreliable. Oh wait. Yeah, so like in this case, I don't want to delay it because this is like the only thing that we're going to be sending to the client. So in this case, yeah, we want to just say, hey, send this right away. And I need to include the stream. And so this needs to be created here, right? Stream. What do we want to do? I think all we just need to do is say authentication. And that's it. Right now, I don't think we need to include any data. We just are saying, hey, you need to authenticate, period. That's it. That's all that we need to send to the client. And then what we're going to do is actually not have a handler in here. We're going to, I think at this point, we'll do probably, we could do a switch statement. This is actually something that Nixify did. Switch, message type. The thing about that is I think it complains if you have, or if you don't have certain message types. But we could default it to being this here. I don't know if we want this, but maybe. And then for authentication case, this is where we actually want to do something with it. I like that you let the server send the first message. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Well, like at this point, they've already kind of been communicating some, um, doing that handshake, but they don't have any sort of password handshake. I'm just because this is not a this doesn't need to be a super secure game. We're just going to be passing the password as a string. That's fine. Um, yeah, authentication. So we'll just say, hey, tell the client that we need to pass a password, and then we'll have the client try to send the password. We'll only give them one chance if they don't send the password. Yeah, I actually need to think about that some because yeah, we'll need to think about how they are being set up and make sure that it's correct. But yeah, this is on the client side. So what do we want to do? We want to, at this point, create a new message. So, whoops. Write stream. This is our response. We want to then say, okay, we are sending an authentication packet back to them, and it is going to contain our password. And that's it. Nothing else. Really basic. And then we need to send that to the server. And again, we want this to be reliable, no niggle. Is this right? It feels weird. Have it be like that. I guess that's right. Okay. You could use an if statement. Yeah. Yeah, I guess it depends on how many, like, what are all of the places that we're actually going to use, or like handle these messages here directly. I guess what I could do is look at what I did for Korea and see. 1 second. I like how switch statements look. Also remember the break. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think I might actually get switch to an if. Let's see. Let's go to server. Do we handle stuff in here? Backnet started, startup, send, handle request. I think I might be in client, no, connection, maybe. Version check. Oh yeah, okay, that's a good point. Actually, I should probably always do authentication, huh? I didn't think about that. That's a good point. I might want to do that. Receipt loss. Yeah, we don't do like any, yeah, we don't really handle the messages. So I think I'm going to switch to an if statement just because we don't really use that. But that's a good point that I probably need with, maybe with authentication, you could always at least pass in. Yeah, maybe we will do that. That would make it easier. If we're just like, hey, the client always needs to do an authentication like handshake. Maybe I'll even call this like the handshake. And include in here, I don't have it right now, but the version for the game, because we need to make sure that they're on the same game version, otherwise there could be problems with the communication. The handshake. That's right. Even though there's already a bunch of stuff going on. But yeah, we could do something like game version. And that could be coming from, I don't even know where. We could put it in game.age right now. Yeah, I don't know what I want to call it right now. I think in Korea I actually made it be a string. I don't know if I'm gonna do, I might do that for now. Oh wait, that can't be. Right. What did I end up doing for that? Can't pass in a pointer. We can't make that be a const expression. I don't know. I don't know what I want to do with this yet. I'm gonna think about the game version stuff. Maybe I'll do some research on best ways to handle game versions. But for now, we can just say it's an int, and we'll just say it's version 1. And then in here, we just need to include the game.h. And maybe we'll even put it, the version in its own file. I don't know. That doesn't really matter too much, but. So it has the game version. And yeah, let's rename this to be handshake. So then we'll always do a handshake, regardless what the password is. The password might be empty string and might not be. And then on the server side, we need to actually handle this now. I wonder if I should have the client. Thinking like maybe they should both be. No, we should have the server. I was like, should we have the server send the version? But then I'm like, oh wait, no, we shouldn't, because we want the server to be the authoritative server. And that means that we don't want to give the client any information. Like, just, I mean, for this game, it doesn't matter too much, but if we actually told the client like, hey, you should be version 12, then the client could just, reply back, oh yeah, I'm totally version 12. Even though it could be like version 3, which has some exploit or something that we shouldn't be using. I mean, for this game, it doesn't really matter, but Yeah, so we'll make it so that the client needs to tell the server which version it is, and then the server will deem if it's going to work or not. So in here, we're going to change this to be a, yeah, we're just going to use a if statement. If the message type is handshake, then we will handle it. Otherwise, we will do this. And the handshake will do some special stuff here. Oh, and that's actually a good point. That's right. We're always requiring you to do the handshake whenever you connect. So let's actually not add the player to the list of connections yet. So let's go into here. Handshake. This is what we're going to want to do eventually. So this is for who is the connection message dot get connection. Okay. So we need to make sure that this is all good. Best way to do that is check. Well, wait. First, we need to read the password. So string password. I still want to figure out a nice way to make it so I could do that all in one line. When reading the read stream, yeah, I just don't like that syntax. So that's the password. We also need the version, which is right now just an int. And stream game version. So then what we need to do is to say, hey, the password should be equal to our password, and the game version needs to be equal to the actual game version. And if it is, then we can connect it. Otherwise, we should disconnect at that point. Close connection. Client failed to provide correct handshake data, so disconnect. Cool. So that's it. So that should be right. Right. Let's change this to be message type. Change that some. And let's now build this. Right stream and oh, do I not have right stream.hpp in here? I don't. Okay, that should fix that. Okay. Cool. Let's also, since we're setting this up, let's provide a password. Well, we'll see. We'll try a few different things. One thing maybe what I should do is actually create like a really simple UI. We have support for this. I could create a simple UI that we could even type in the password and try to connect. Maybe I should do that. And then I don't even have to have... Yeah, maybe. So here's the password. We'll try it without the password. But yeah, I might maybe add in that UI. So this is the server. Let's go into here and see. What we'll do is we'll add 2 breakpoints. One is here. Well, we know this is going to run, right? So I guess really the interesting thing would be this. What do we get back? It should have connected. Wait, did I screw something up? Okay, let's... No, it didn't run this. What did I change that broke that? Did not run this. Did not run this. Did it break? Wah, wah, wah. Okay, I don't know why that would not be working anymore. Because I did not change much. So it should have broken up in here when we try to connect. It's all double check that that's happening. We can also make sure that we are calling this initialize. Pretty sure. And then yeah, that should be okay. I'll see at what point it's not doing this. Okay, so that was set up properly. But it doesn't break again after that. What did I change? What did I change? I don't know what I did. It was working, I swear. Yeah, that shouldn't be affecting it. Handshake, entity created, that's fine. I guess I could try doing it on the client side. Debug setup. So it should be setting it up. I am calling the shutdown, right? That is working. Let's double check that. It is calling shutdown and it's properly closing the socket. Everything. So that's all working correctly. Okay. I'm a little stumped here why it's not running the callbacks anymore. Okay, let's dash this. Did I make it like a last minute change before I committed it that broke it? I'm trying to think if I did. Let's build that again. Also need to build the release. The struggle is real, man. Yeah. It's like, what did I do? It was working. How's it going, Kyle? What's up? Oh, whoops. Let me close this. Struggle is real indeed. Okay. Let's see if this is working. Doesn't. So it looks like I broke something last minute and now it's just not working. Dang. Okay, so what did I do to break this at the last minute? I was so close. Unfortunately, I committed everything together. I don't think that looking at this is actually going to help. No. Okay, I guess we just need to kind of, let's just reapply this dash. After applying, what I think we will do is just like step through it, I guess. Dang. We had it working. Trying to think. We'll make sure that it's properly creating that. Hey, Nixify, take care. Thanks for joining. I appreciate it. See you again. Okay. So let's try to figure out what I did to break this. Maybe I need to look at the VOD. It's one advantage is like, not only do I have, version control to tell me exactly what I'm doing and changing, but I also have you guys and the VOD that I could look back at and see exactly what I changed between the time that I had it running to where I committed it and it was broken. But that I feel like is probably one of the slower ways to go. I don't know, actually maybe it's not. Maybe I should just look at the VOD. Trying to think. Analyze VOD to find error. Yeah. That's what I'm kind of thinking. I think I might actually just do that because I don't know what I changed. It was working. I honestly am like kind of thinking maybe I didn't change anything and it's just that it like what I was kind of thinking possibility is that I wasn't closing down the socket correctly or something and it's trying to like reuse. I don't know why it would do that, or like there's the port, or I don't know. I was thinking that something wasn't shut down properly and so it's not being able to create it properly anymore. But I did run it multiple times and it was working, so I don't know why or how that would exactly be the case. So yeah, let's just look at the VOD. Turn off the sound so I don't have to listen to my voice. Excellent. Okay, so we're further back. Okay, here's where I'm committing it. We kind of went on this tangent talking about how things are working. Yeah, let's find it where I actually ran. Oh, you know what? I did not run it. Did I really not run it that entire time? Ugh. Okay, here I think I got it working. Look, there's two of me. And if I go back and watch this part of the VOD, there'll be three. Double S Inception. I don't know if I ran this. Wow. Dang. Okay, so apparently like everything I've changed today is not working. Or like could be the thing that's broken. Ugh. I know I ran it early on. We actually fixed it very quickly. I think right here. Yeah, there we go. So we got it working an hour and a half ago, and then in the last hour and a half, I have not tested anything. So I don't know if that's actually going to be all that helpful in trying to figure out what's going on. Curses! Well, oop. Dang. I am calling this, right? Maybe I'm not calling this initialize properly or something. No, I saw that I am. Why does this not get called on? Ooh. Okay, so what can we do? What can we do? Yeah, so what did I do to change it all? I changed a lot of this stuff. I added in more possibilities in here. I made it so that... Oh, do we call initialize before or after? Oh, I think I know what the problem is. Aha! It's because, okay, that makes sense. I need to call network initialize after I initialize theme. If I do it before, it's not going to work. I bet that's the problem. Yeah, I was just trying to think. I need to actually build the release version as well. I was trying to think, like, what did I change during that time? And one thing I did is that first I had it so it was creating this callback handler in here in the setup, but then I moved it to the initialize function. But initialize function is happening, well, was happening up here, but the setup was happening down here, which is after this theme API stuff. So I'm pretty sure that's what's up with it. So that's good. It's cool. So let's go ahead and now run this. Go over here, run this. Sorry, juggling a few things here. No, it's still not working. Ah, dang. I was really hoping that would be it. Really hoping that would be it. I was almost certain that was the problem. But I do have a breakpoint up here, so we're still not getting any callbacks happening. Okay, what else did I change during that time? Here, I guess what I could always do is try going back to what I had before and seeing how that works. Or seeing if it works, period. So what we could do is disable that. I don't know why this would be the only thing, but we'll try it. guess we only really have to try this server in this case. So when we set it up, let's do s callback handler is equal to a new callback handler. We don't need to worry about shutting down. I think that's it. I don't know why this would make a difference though. Like, they're pretty much happening at the same time now. Oh yeah, I do have to have the release build running. Yeah, we did not get any sort of connection. Connection. They're not properly trying to connect. I did not change that code. I did not change that code. Okay, so what else did we change to mess with our connections? Yeah, welcome anyone who's joined. If you guys aren't familiar with this project, this is projectDIG, a 2D multiplayer automation survival sandbox game that I am developing entirely here on Twitch and uploading all the VODs to YouTube. And we're currently looking at trying to get some basic multiplayer, netcode communication messages being sent over the network. I'm trying to just do, a local host right now. And I had it working, and then I made a ton of changes, didn't test it, and then committed everything. Big fail. And now I'm trying to figure out what I did to break it. What is not happening is that we should have this callback handler having these this function called on connection status changed whenever the status changes, like someone's trying to connect to us. This is not being called whatsoever. It was before, now it's not. I'm not sure why. I was thinking for a moment that it was due to the Steam API not being initialized properly, but that does not seem to be the case. Because I do properly call initialize here after the Steam API has been initialized. Close some of those. What's going on? Local. That's definitely not a problem. Yeah, this is just mostly me failing. Set up. We know that this is being called. We'll double check that. Okay, I think what I'm just going to do is make sure I set breakpoints everywhere that I'm assuming that things are being called, just to make sure that they truly are. And then, yeah, we'll go from there. Like, I wonder if there's a way for me, I don't think there is, But it'd be nice to be able to see, like, are we actually having, how could I do that? I'd like to see if I actually have a connection being established, or at least it's trying to be established and the callback is not happening, or if it's that the connection is not being made, period. That would be nice to know. There probably is a way to do that, like sniffing my packets and see if any packets are being sent on that port 5555. Okay, so we're just going to test. We'll first do the debug version and see that, and maybe we'll also do the release. Step through everything. Okay, so here's setup. Oh wait, so yeah, try. Oh, whoops, that is probably all wrong now. Let's also set a breakpoint in here. Okay, let's restart that. Make sure that this gets, so it initializes, it sets up this callback handler, that's great. Now it sets this up. That's great. And we know that Steam initialized properly. We can see that this has been called. Unfortunately, I can't step into it. So that all seems to be working correctly on the server. Quest entity creation. Yeah, that's all fine. That's all fine. Okay, let's swap these two. This is where having the UI would actually be useful. If in def, because then I wouldn't have to rebuild every single time I want to do something like this. To release now, so the release is going to be the server. So let's, while we're at it, okay, we do have a breakpoint there. Let's set a breakpoint in the connect. And we have it in initialize, that's good. Yeah, so that should be everything. So first let's run the server, which is now the release version here. And then we'll run the client that tries to connect. Let's see, it initializes it here, great. Jumps into here, we can see it correctly initializes that. Because I think so. I can't inspect it, unfortunately, because I think it's a static variable. I don't know why I can't inspect static variables, though. It's undefined. Yeah, that's annoying. Need to figure out how to fix that. I don't know. I might honestly end up moving all of this into a class. Instead of having this callback handler, maybe I'll just have a server and a client. Hey, what's the game engine? Hello? It's because I think it's because it's being statically initialized, so I can't inspect that thing specifically, but if these were function, I don't know. It's kind of weird. I'll look into it later. But yeah, so anyways, it is properly calling this connection. Wait, oh wait. What? What the heck? It looks like it's calling it on the client. Why would it call the server connection established? Connecting. Why would it call it here? What's going on? Why would it not call it on the other one? It seems like the client's connecting to itself. What's going on here? I am doing something wrong. Something weird is happening here. Maybe it's because I don't want to be initializing both of them. I think this is actually causing things to be screwed up. I'm starting to think that I really shouldn't be doing that in there. Maybe we will do this. Let me try this. I don't know if I fully did this the last time. Okay, let's try doing this. Oh, and I can't just call delete on both. What we'll do is we'll call shutdown and disconnect, and we will handle it properly in here. Up here. Shut down. Okay, let's try this. And what we'll do is one thing, or one way to tell if this is working is if we receive a message. Maybe it's getting confused because I was setting up multiple. That's my best guess at the moment. Is that, yeah, that has to be it. Well, it doesn't have to be, but it's likely. Is that I was telling it to have two different callbacks or systems that were handling that callback, and it was getting like completely screwed up or something. Okay, so run release mode first. Now launch the client. Okay, connect. It calls that. We got a handshake message. Nice. We fixed it. So we pass in that information, and then we hopefully will get the fully connected state at that point, at some point. Hey, yay, banzai, banzai. Okay, so my problem, I think I had two problems here. One is that I needed to initialize it after the Steam API has been initialized. The second issue is that I needed to only have one callback thing being set up, otherwise it gets completely confused and messed up, and I don't completely know what was going on there, but it was being really weird. We fixed it. Awesome. And it's actually authenticating properly. So one thing we could do is something like, let's swap these. And then let's say that the password required is test. Need to build release as well. And we'll see, it should fail. We're going to hopefully see that. Oh, whoops, I keep forgetting to close both. Have I ever mentioned that doing multiplayer testing sucks? Having to run two clients? Okay, so let's now run the server. And what I want to do is I want to actually, before we do that, let's set a breakpoint up. Is it here? Okay, skip that. Handshake. So we read the password is nothing, game version is 1, and so we're going to see that this is wrong. And so we close the connection. So we actually get disconnected. So then if we try to send stuff, we see it's not working. But, whoops, no. One thing we can do to fix it, is to say that we have the correct password. Oh wait, hold up. It's, we need to build the release more than anything. And again, forgot to, what's that? Yeah, so let's first run the server. No. To remember to change that. I wonder if there's a better way to go about testing this type of thing. So it's going to do the handshake. Here we are. We get the password is test. And hey, it was correct. So we got connected properly. So now we can see them. Nice. Okay, cool. So this is not working. So we actually have the handshake being set up properly. One problem with it, well, kind of problem, is that technically the client can still be sending messages to the server before we have authenticated or did our handshake. The way to fix that would be that we would need to look at, yeah, it's pretty much something like this. Well, we get the message here, so I guess we would want to do it like this. We'd say for actually, I might make a function in here to do this, just so we could call it easily. Void is player authenticated. Maybe I could say is fully connected. We need to pass in the connection. And then we'll just say if you're not fully connected, then continue. We're going to ignore that pack. Oh wait. My bad. We actually need to do that here, right? We need to allow the player to handle the handshake. So actually, I guess what we could do is this. We can make this be an else if. Oh yeah, because we actually, yeah, this is the correct way to do it. Because it might be the case that, yeah, I mean, if we're not fully connected, we still need to return, I mean, continue and release the message so it gets cleaned up properly. This needs to be a bool, and then this needs to just say for connection out of our connections. If the connection is equal to, whoops, equal to the existing connection, then let's return true. If we don't find it at all, then we will return false. Can't you queue messages until the handshake is done? I don't think we want to do that though. Like, what messages are we wanting to queue? Because what we need to do is once the player has done this handshake, then we want to say, okay, the player is now fully connected. Let's go ahead and send them all the data they need to know. And up until that point, we're just sending the data that we're sending is like delta on changes and everything. And so we don't really care about that delta stuff because it would be meaningless to that player until we send them the like base state that all of the deltas, you know, will be based off of in the future. Yeah. So we're like, hey, here's the current state of the world. Now you can understand what we're talking about with all these deltas. So yeah, at some point we'll actually create something. Maybe we can start thinking and talking about it today. But we'll have something along the lines of state communication, which is tracking all of the connections that we have established and which connections know what. And so the connection will kind of be associated with the player at this point. So we're like, okay, here's the connection, here's the player. Like here we have the connection, is in this case we call that the network ID, and then the player data. So we're like, okay, here's the connection and here's all the information that is associated with that connection and the player. Like here's all the entities they know about, and here's all the tile data, and here are the locations that they know about, and everything, like all of the data in the world that they know, or like all the data on the information they know about, if that makes sense. So we'll track, like, they know entity IDs 25 and 32 and 64 and so on. We'll store those numbers in here, but we won't actually store like the components or anything. And then at that point, if let's say entity ID has a component, entity ID 25 has a component that changes, we will see, oh, hey, this player knows about that entity. Let's go ahead and send the delta, that, you know, that change for that entity's component. And that's what the state communication is responsible for. And we'll have something similar. So this is the Kriya code, Kriya game engine code. I imagine we're going to have something fairly similar for projectDIG, but I don't know exactly what. Before we do anything else, let's go ahead and commit this. Yeah. Okay, so what do we do here? Add netcode final handshake for password support and game version checking. Okay. So we have that set up. I still am kind of on the fence about changing this. I'm gonna think about it, sit on it for a bit. So one thing I'm still thinking about, and maybe we can talk about it some more now, is just how are we going to be handling, let me close some of this stuff. I don't think we need this stuff anymore, so let's actually close like all of that. Yeah, so how are we going to handle tracking and sending data? So we're talking about that state communication. How would this look? Sorry, how would this look? What would this look like? How would this function? So we have some basic requirements here, which is like fundamentally we need to be tracking the data that the client knows about so we can send delta on those changes. And if they don't know about it and we decide that they do need to know about that entity, like they moved within range or the entity moved within range, whatever, then we need to add that to the list of things that they are tracking and send them all of the information that they need to know about it. Yeah, so the tricky thing about this, like why this is hard, or I mean, I don't know if it's really hard. It's I'm trying to put some extra thought into it. Is that we are doing a very like this is based off of the underlying system, like the entire engine, which is a component based engine. And so we have our entities that contain all of the components, and the components have logic and functions, you know, getters and setters, and lots of stuff that we can do something like easily say, hey, this component is dirty, or hey, this specific piece of data on this component is dirty, it needs to be synced. And that's all really easy to do. With that system. But for projectDIG, we have a entity component system. And that means that our entities are just IDs, which is fine. That's fine. But it also means that they don't know what components there are, and consequently, we have to do a lookup for that. So if we just say, hey, this entity has a dirty component, then we have to be able to, we need somewhere to store that, hey, there's a dirty component, you know, so the component ID as well as the entity. We can't store that on the entity because that doesn't exist. So we would need to store it somewhere else. And that's okay. Like we could put that in the like state communication or whatever and to say, oh yeah, there's this, you know, or on the world or whatever, and to say, hey, here's this dirty entity component pair. That could work. but it means that we have to do this lookup where now we have two lookups. We have to first check to see, hey, is this entity dirty? Or maybe we would like iterate through all the dirty entities and then do a lookup. Hey, is this entity in the list of in the list of entities that this player cares about, you know, that we're syncing that data for, and if they are, then we need to actually send that. So like we have to do, well, yeah, we have to send it, but then we have to do a lookup for the actual component. So we're doing multiple lookups, which would be nice to avoid if possible. Like it'd be really nice if we could just say, hey, here's all the dirty components with the entities, period. But that would be a lot of data, and that's one of the, we need to make sure that we're, you know, as I say over here, we need to be bandwidth performant. We can't just say, here's all the dirty entities in the entire world. We need to like have some way to remove that or something. And also, yeah. One possibility that I'm thinking is, what if we actually made it so that we stored we had like a copy of it? I don't know if that makes sense. You got spatial queries in there, yes. Are you having couch co-op? Maybe. But why does that matter? I mean, yeah, I might do it. I'm not sure yet. The couch co-op, but we do have spatial queries, so we can do that, and so we can figure out like, is the entity close by and everything. We can filter it. It does mean that we have to do this extra like lookup. Maybe we will. I mean, we probably will, because we do, bandwidth performance is much more important than the CPU performance. Like, the trade-off is worth it for sure. Yeah, so anyways, coming back to look at this stuff. So yeah, I was thinking it would be nice to be able to somehow be able to reduce the number of lookups, but also, even if we were able to do like all of that, I think we still have the problem where we need to be able to know sometimes exactly what is dirty. Could decompile Terraria and see how they do things. That's a good idea. That's funny. I actually have Korea decompiled on my computer. It's from like a super old version. But I do have it decompiled on my computer. I think it's like 1.07 or something like that. on my Dropbox. Because this was before I started Korea. Where is it at? I think. Yeah, decompile to 104. Nice. Yeah. Because we're trying to, my brother and I, we were trying to make mods for Terraria, and it was a pain. And that's, you know, how we even got started working on Korea. Is like, hey, you know, it'd be cool if we had a game like Terraria, but you could actually mod it. And then I worked on the game for like 7 years. But anyways, there are times that we want to know not just that the component is dirty, but specific information on the component. We want to try to compact things down as nicely as we can. I'm not entirely sure how things are going to work in the future. I like that origin story. Yeah, it's didn't really work out too well, but I mean, it was okay. I quit my job and have been able to do indie game development since then, so I guess that's good. It worked out. The whole modding, you know, at first I was like, it wasn't going to be a commercial game, it was just going to be a hobby game, so I'm like, let's just make a game like Terraria with modding support. Of course, I didn't know what I was doing. And then I made a lot of changes that I did not realize were going to impact the development time as much as they did. Like, you know, I just was like, you know what, let's experiment with this stuff. While we're at it, we might as well kind of, you know, make changes like, oh, hey, let's make it so that monsters have these spawners, and so they can spawn from them, kind of like in dang, what's that game called again? Soul Blazer. And so you have to like kill the spawner. Or yeah, and then also like, hey, let's have it so monsters actually attack you instead of just touching you. But I didn't realize, oh, that actually like increases the number of frames that we need by like a dozen. And since we have higher quality artwork, it means that monsters take like 10 times as long to develop or more. And yeah, anyways, 7 years later. So coming back to the state communication stuff, we need to be able to know what data has changed on the component. Such as let's say that we have an inventory component that has a list of items in your inventory. And that list of items is like a quantity and the entity ID, and or it's a list of items, which is a quantity, an entity ID if it's a unique item, like a piece of equipment with that has like unique stats on it, and then also the prefab ID, so we know what prefab it is. If it doesn't have a actual like unique entity ID for it. So like a potion wouldn't have a unique entity ID, it just has a prefab ID of a potion. So we have this list of items. Let's say you get a new item. So our inventory component has changed to have this new item. it would be very inefficient to every single time you get a new item or have an item's quantity change or anything like that, require us to send the entire state. The entire component. So let's say we have 40 different items in our inventory, potentially. We have to send all 40 every single time you get a new item. That sucks. So, like what I did for Korea is that I actually say, instead of sending all 40, I just have what do I do for it? Whenever I pack up that component, it has some special logic on it, which is, hey, here are all, and we can just look at this code. Let's pull it up. So this is in our item bag, which is part of the inventory component. If we scroll down to where we pack, we can see we have a changed list. So this is like it's a uint32 set. I don't know really why I do a set, but whatever. I guess in case you change the same thing multiple times. I don't know if that really makes sense. Might not be worth it, but anyways. So we write the index. So change this contains the number of items that changed that are being packed, and so we write that out. We write the number of changed items, and then we get the index or we write, and then later on we read the index of the changed item, and then we pack that item specifically. We say, okay, now let's have this item be updated, and then we send that. And so on the other side, we're only sending the items that actually changed. And so that's much more efficient than sending everything. That means that now we need to store somewhere all of the changed components. Or sorry, all of the changed items. Where does that live? I don't know. I don't know. First two thoughts. We could put it on the component. It does mean that the component gets bloated, and that kind of sucks. Another possibility is that we have kind of like a copy of the component or something. We have a network component that, so like for every single component that we possibly sync, so we would have an inventory component, and then we'd have like a network inventory component. And the network inventory component tracks all of the dirty information, and that's stored in some pool. And we would be, I guess that would be associated with an entity as well. Yeah, I feel like we really don't want to put it in the component because that goes against the whole data-oriented design, where we're trying to keep our structures as small as possible so we can iterate over them quickly. And this information is something that we would only be accessing typically. Well, I guess it's true that, I don't know, actually, that's a good point. We might be accessing it fairly often. If for the server, we're accessing it when we are possibly changing this stuff. Or we will be. We need to like say, hey, this item index changed. Thinking. Yeah, so we could put it on the component. I feel like that could be good, it could be bad. Another option is to have it, like I was saying, have it have a like a network inventory component, and that would contain. That's how we could tell if it's dirty at all, is if the network inventory component exists, then we know that we need to sync something, and then we look at how many like it would have a changed list, and we could just iterate over that. Have you any code generation for network protocol? Code generation. What do you mean, more gold? More glod. There's a replication component. Does that tell it to create that entity on the other side of things? Yeah, that's actually a good question. Or that's a good point, is that we probably don't want to be syncing all entities. We might want to have some entities that are specifically for the server or specifically for the client. Yeah, we're kind of trying to figure that all out right now. Okay, code generation, like protobufs. No, we don't have. I am not doing that. I am writing my own. Yeah. Yeah, we looked at protocol buffer or protobufs, as well as what was the other one? Forgetting the name of it. Flat buffers. Replication system, watch replicating props and send it over the network to other replication system. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what we're looking at here. And trying to figure out, like, hey, what are the props or the entities that need to be synced to the other client? Like, we don't want to send everything. We only want to send the stuff that they need to know about. So yeah, trying to figure that out now. Yeah, it is true that there might be some cases where we don't want an entity to be synced. I don't know how we would want to do that. Or we might say this entity is only on the client. That's also something I might want to do. Like for Kriya, what I ended up doing is making it so that the client could never create its own component. Oh, sorry, its own entities. If the client ever tried to create its own entity, it would actually crash the game. Because it was like, it was typically, and I made it do that. And, it would assert, it's like, hey, this is the client. You should not be calling this function. But sometimes it would do something. We would have it messed up where it's like, oh, hey, let's create this, monster on the client. This, like, we would have a callback function that is being called on the client whenever it really shouldn't be. That creates, a spawned monster or something. And yeah, so We might want something like that for this, but we also probably want support for creating client-side entities that aren't coming from the server. One challenging thing about that is the entity ID. Like, how do we know that it's a unique ID now? I guess one thing we could do, we could always reserve a bit for something like that in the entity ID. You know, we have, oh, whoops, that's Korea. Should have realized that. We have the generation, the index, the type. We could easily take out from one of these, like from the type maybe. I don't know which one would make the most sense. One of these bits could just be like, hey, this is an entity. Or sorry, this is a client entity. And that would make it so that it would always have a unique ID compared to the others. Oh wait, that doesn't quite work actually. Oh wait, no, it would. I'll take the back, it would. Yeah. I think so. Actually, I haven't really thought about that much. Now that I think about it, I don't know how that's going to work. How is our whole entity IDs going to work with the network? Because we have generation and index, so that entity ID, maybe it doesn't make sense. What we might need to do is have some sort of, maybe that's what the solution would be, is like a mapping of the server ID to the client ID. That probably is what we would need to do. So anytime the server says, hey, you need to update entity 37, the client then would see that and say, well, 37 actually means 12 here. So let's go update entity 12. And the reason that we need to do something like that is because the generation and the index are going to be created based off of like the other entities, and so unless the client was exactly the same as the server, it wouldn't be possible to have that be mirrored. I think, yeah, I think that we will have to do that. That's okay. That's okay. So we'll have to have some like redirection there. You can store the UUID in the replication component or network component. Yeah. How would we want? So what would the network component, replication component, whatever you want to call it, how would that actually work? Like what information is it storing? I guess it just tells us like, hey, we are wanting to store data. Hey, Gemaris, what's up? Welcome. Good. I'm good. We made some good progress today so far, so feeling good about that. We actually got some network code going. Oh yeah, that was interesting. I was saying how many lines of code this would be. I was saying it's probably be like 400 or 500. It's 330 at the moment. Not too bad. So this is all the netcode to be able to send and receive data. Not bad at all. Anyways, so network connection. So yeah, that could, or replication connection, whatever. That would it could contain the UUID or the entity ID, whatever. Right? I guess so. The one that's on the server, I don't know if that's actually important. I guess that's important. Yeah, I could see that. Like, if we ever want to tell the server, like, hey, we're trying to interact with this entity, entity 12, that actually is entity 37 on the server. So we kind of have to have that redirection. So I could see that the network system or network component or replication component having the server's entity ID. There should be more than one component for that because there is, for example, a hard sync like player's inventory and smooth like moving objects. Yeah, well, for the moving object, it would probably just do something completely separate. Like that would have, like we wouldn't even track that information. We'd just say like, hey, let's get all the prediction data. I guess we would track who actually moved if they have any prediction data that has changed. We would do that. Yeah, that's true. So much stuff. Like we could store that information in the network component. That feels super bulky though. I don't know if I like that. It's an interesting idea. That would contain a lot of data. I don't know if I like that. Just like putting everything. Do it. What else could we do? It might be client side effects. Replicate explosion of a barrel. There might be fire effects and smoke. Yeah, that would be probably where like we would send a message to the client saying, "Hey, create a particle effects, emitter at this location with this information." And so that would be more that I don't think that would be part of the replication system. I mean, maybe the barrel exploding would be, but the rest would be just like a message sent to the client with like spawning an emitter. That's what I think. I mean, you could do something like have an event. This is another way you can do it, is have an event that's like, hey, this is a barrel exploding, or this thing is exploding, and we just we send that event to the client, and then the client knows, oh, hey, in order to explode this barrel, I need to do this thing. You know, maybe at this point we can stop tracking on the client. On the server, like having it go back and forth, and we need to have it explode and, you know, do whatever, create some particles, and so it could do like a series of things. The upside to that is it's cheaper on bandwidth, because then the client will know, like, hey, these are the particles, like it knows exactly what particle system or emitters it needs to be creating and everything. The downside is that it just means you have to make a lot more of those. Like, for every single thing that can possibly do something, you need to add in that support for that event. Yeah, it's something that I honestly went back and forth on a lot for Korea. Like, maybe it should be worth it, because it's like, let's say, yeah, like you want to explode that barrel. Not only do you want to maybe play like 2 or 3 particle emitters, and you have to send that data down to the client, but also maybe you want to play a sound or two, and that's a bunch of data that you have to be sending to the client. Whereas if it was just an event, it could be an enum, like just an integer, which is like, hey, play the, you know, barrel explosion event at this location or on this entity. And it plays the sounds and everything, yeah. So it could be worth it. And you can always do both. It is possible to do both. Like, maybe for something that is much more critical, you could make those events where it's like, oh yeah, you know, we're having barrels exploding every few seconds or whatever, or every second. I don't know. Like, there are things that happen very, very often, and we could have that be an event. Whereas other things we could, that maybe only happen every, you know, few minutes or whatever, it would provide exactly what needs to be happening to the client. Like, play the sound, play this particle emitter. And I think there's like a few other things that sometimes might happen. React, like telling the client to react to something. I don't recall what, though. Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm going to stop here and do some planning, kind of just off stream. I'm kind of hungry, so I'm gonna go eat lunch, refuel, and then just do a little bit of planning off stream. I won't actually implement anything. You know, I'm always doing all the development here on stream, but I definitely think better if I'm able to just kind of retreat into my mind and not feel obligated to or pressured to be talking. So I'm gonna do that, and hopefully I come up with something good that we can start working on tomorrow. Or I might just decide to move on and come back to it later. We'll see. But yeah, thank you guys for joining. I appreciate it. I think it was a good, productive stream. We actually got that server client communication happening. That's awesome. Very good. Very, very good. I will be back tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Pacific time. We'll either be working on that netcode, trying to figure out this like replication system, or we might move on to like looking at scripting support. I don't know. I want to at least figure out how I might want to do the multiplayer stuff, so that way in the future, when we're like starting to implement some systems, I can kind of have that support built in, so we don't have to retroactively go through a ton of components and game systems and try to retrofit it with replication system. But yeah, thank you guys for joining. I will, like I said, be back tomorrow. If you're not following already, feel free to follow, and I will see you tomorrow. Take care.